and Pookie. Sandy McFall. And Norling Havers is not here. Diane is here. Jerry Ledley.
Here.
Karen, you're substituting for
Nita Erickson.
okay. And I am here. And Rex is here. Roll call is finished. Thank you.
Well, I take back what I said about, I'm really pleased that all of you did come, and you obviously saw the flyers. I'm kind of disappointed that the official resident council reps didn't make it. And I'm not sure what the reason is. We're going to have to explore that. At any rate, I'm glad you're all here. Today we are pleased to have a guest speaker. Actually, he's here. This is Kurt Vartan over there, and his wife Marguerite back there. And both of them have been involved in community activities for many, many years and have a great interest in what is happening down the street here at the old BAREC. I always pronounce that wrong. That dirt lot down there called BAREC property. And they're going to talk to us about that, and they're also going to tell us a fair amount about what's going on at Santana Row and Valley Village. And as you know, there's a lot going on. Okay, so let me introduce, without further ado, our guest speaker, Kurt Vartan.
Thank you very much. And Steve, thank you for inviting me over today. I've given this kind of presentation a few times now, and I've streamlined it a fair amount since the first time I did it. So I will do my best to keep us on track, not keep you here longer than you need to be. But I want to try and give you a flavor for what I've learned over the last few years and months and the last decade or so about what the developments are over at Valley Fair, at Santana Row, the old Century site, and the BAREC site too, because they're all kind of related in the sense that it's all part of our neighborhood and our community here. All right, so I'm going to jump right in a little bit with, as soon as I get this working. Okay. Who I am. So I'm a resident here. As Steve mentioned, I live in the neighborhood with my wife. I started a pizza shop with my wife back in 2006, right down the street on Stevens Creek. Before that, I was in high tech. But I'm a community person. Don't misunderstand the information I'm presenting to you as me being a developer. I'm not a developer. I'm a community resident like you guys, and I care about the community like you guys. And I'm here to share as much information as I can with you so that you have a better understanding about what's happening in our area, and then hopefully we can have some positive impact on what we can do in our contribution. So I have this is a little interactive audience question. When you ask the mayor or a council member or a city staff person or give a comment to them, how effective do you think that is as a community member yourself? Do you feel that your feedback is heard?
No.
Anybody? Anybody think? So, 1, 2 people? Okay, so that's less than I normally. Usually I see about 10% of the people think that their voices are heard when they talk to the city. And I think that's pretty common right now because there's so much change going on, and we don't really know what's happening as much as what's going on. We kind of get told. And I think people get kind of you know, there's nothing I can do. They don't listen to me anyways, and they get kind of demoralized by that. And I want to show you something that happened last month. It's on April 21st, which is just about a month ago at Santa Clara City Hall. The Youth Soccer League has a soccer park right next to Levi Stadium. And I don't know if you've been monitoring what's been going on, but it's been pretty contentious. The San Francisco 49ers want to take over that field for parking, and the soccer community is a little upset about that. So they rallied around this study session at 5 o'clock, and I arrived to just a swarm of people outside. And if you take a look at inside, you had 8-year-olds to 80-year-olds talking to the city council saying, we don't like the process that's going on here. And it even got to a point where the fire marshals had to stop people from entering the council chamber because it was so packed. There was probably 150 people inside and probably another 150 people outside the city council chambers. And the result of that activity is the city council did not move forward with even considering the proposal that was put before them. So I would offer this as an example of, if you get involved, you can make a difference because they will listen to you. So this is my effort to show, I think there is hope for us as community members and contributors. So I'm here to talk about our area here, our neighborhood here. Valley Village is just up the street over here. But this is Valley Fair, Santana Row, the Century Theater, and then the BAREC site. This is before it was developed. So we're going to zoom in a little bit closer so we can take a look at the space. Now, if we look at that, I hope you can see that. That red line is the Santa Clara-San Jose border. Now, you notice it's not straight. It's kind of oddly shaped. And it comes down Winchester, goes across Fernwood, goes up to Prune Ridge, down West Ridge, across Forest, down Winchester, through Valley Fair Mall, down through the Gap and Macy's, down to Stevens Creek, and then it goes west along Stevens Creek. Now, I show that to you because it's a very oddly shaped city boundary, but it shows how closely tied Santa Clara and San Jose are together around this piece of property and in our neighborhood. So over to the right here, on the yellow side, this is San Jose District 6. I live right over here with my wife in District 6. And then if we look one more quadrant over here, this is San Jose District 1. And I point this out just to give you context of some of the complexities of our area. And it all points to this one intersection, Stevens Creek and Winchester, which is basically almost three different cities, because San Jose District 1 and District 6 are almost like separate jurisdictions. They're not technically a different city, but they have their own resources, their own focus. So what ends up happening is our neighborhood around here, in general, is not having a clear leader because it isn't clear who owns the vision for the area. So that's where I think we step in. Now, this also goes for the State Senate, Assembly, and Congress. If you look at these colors, it's kind of hard to see, but if you look at the color differentiators, one side is one district, one side is the other district, and those little circles are Stevens Creek and Winchester. So you can see, even at the congressional and assembly level, it's still split in this area. So even at that level of government, it's still confused on who owns vision for this area. I'm not going to go through all the details about Federal Realty, which is Santana Row. I have this on our website that you can go over, but I just want to highlight a couple of the things. Federal Realty is expanding their footprint on Santana Road today. Now, if you remember over by the movie theater, just to the west, by the Century, there's not at Century, but before you cross Winchester, there used to be a surface parking lot. That's now a big hole, and they're going to be putting up a big 90-foot building right there for office. They call it Class A office. That term, Class A office, you'll hear me mention a couple times. That just means it's an office that's designed for a tech environment or someplace that is a professional office. Okay, a lot of square footage, 220,000 square feet they're going to be adding just in that building alone. And I want to show you what that looks like. This is the one that's under construction right now. This is that one in that parking lot. They're going to have 4 floors of underground parking, and they're going to have about 6 floors above ground. And it's about 220,000 square feet of what they call Class A office space. And they're looking at targeting companies like Facebook or LinkedIn or those companies that haven't matured yet to grow into this kind of corporate office space, kind of like a corporate campus, but all in one area. If we look at this is the kind of an aerial view of the Santana Row, Winchester area. Just to orient you, this street right here is Winchester. Here's 280, and here's the Century site over on the right over here. And there's that building we just saw, what they call 500 Santana Row, to put it in perspective. That's about 90 feet tall. They're going to be building 2 more buildings, what they're calling 700 and 900 Santana Row. These are more of that Class A office space. So between this office space and this office space, there's about 750,000 square feet of office space. So that's a lot of space. And they're going to be investing a lot of money in this area to do that, building buildings that are 130 feet tall and 180 feet tall. These are pretty substantial buildings that they're going to be putting right at the end of Santana Row. This is just to put you, again, give you perspective. Here's main Santana Row. There's the movie theater. And there's that new building. And here's what they have surface parking right now, where valet parking is. That's what that building is going to stand on. And this is going to be a 5-floor parking structure with another office building on top of it. They're going to be adding about 1,800 parking spaces to Santana Row. So we're probably going to be investing $500–600 million in building these buildings. A lot of investment. Looking across the street, again, they're calling this Santana West. So Santana West is also the Century site. This is the program that they've conceptualized right now is about 1,000 residential units, residential apartments at market rate. So these aren't low income, these are regular market rate apartments, an office building, and the Century 21 would be preserved. So again, a lot of development at Santana Row. This is still in the concept stage. They haven't submitted any plans for that. They have a conceptual plan just to get the ball started in the discussion with the community. Next, I just want to quickly touch on Westfield. This is the Valley Fair expansion that's going on. Currently, if you've gone by, you've seen their parking structure has been demolished on the east side of the mall by Macy's Men's. That is going to be replaced with a new parking structure. It's about a 6-story parking structure. They're doubling their capacity of that particular parking structure. And they're going to be investing about $600 million into their development over at Valley Fair. So they're going to be adding a new Bloomingdale's, what they call a flagship Bloomingdale's, 3 stories right on the front of Stevens Creek. They're going to be adding about 95 new retail stores where their current parking structure is in the front by the Cheesecake Factory. It's about 650,000 square feet of new retail. They're going to be growing their mall by about 25–30%, as well as a 10-plex movie theater over by where the old lady shell used to be. Right now it's like a furniture store. I'm going to show you a map of that. Again, I'm just trying to give you a perspective on what's happening in our area. These are things that have already been either committed or planned, or what they call entitled, meaning they have the right to develop that in that way. So these things are already happening above and beyond anything else that's going on in the area. All right? To give you an example of what's happening, over on the right-hand side, that's where the parking lot, this is to orient you, Winchester, north-south, Stevens Creek, east-west, 880–17 kind of on the right over here, off-screen. That parking structure over here is the one that was removed. That parking structure is going to be replaced with a new one. And that should be completed by November of this year, in time for the holidays. This also connects to that new off-ramp that they did off of 880, so in theory, cars will be coming off 880, take the ramp, and go right into this new parking structure. Or at least it'll help the congestion, so they never actually hit Stevens Creek. The second phase that they're going to be doing is they're going to be taking, right now this is a parking structure right here, and they're going to be removing all of this existing parking and surface parking and the banks that are right here, and adding a Bloomingdale's. They're going to be filling this in with new retail stores, and they're going to be taking the bank that's here, moving it off to the right, and Chase is going to move off to the left. So Bank of America is going to move down a little bit, and Chase is going to move down a little bit. They're going to kind of split them apart so they can make room for the new Bloomingdale's that is going to be built there, and the new kind of front facade. They're going to be adding some new restaurants and some pedestrian-friendly gathering areas in the front, some rooftop activities, things like that. And then on the back side, that's where the movie theater is going to be placed. This is closer to that larger parking structure, which is this one, and Macy's Men's over here. Lastly, originally they were going to demolish the Safeway and put the banks in the corner over here. But when the recession hit, they changed those plans. Safeway just got bought by another company last year, so those plans are kind of on hold. So they're not really going to affect this corner right now. But in the future, that's an opportunity for future development. And again, thinking 5 to 10 years out, those are things that we can think about as a community, how this will impact our overall neighborhood. Any questions on that? I don't want to gloss over that, but I don't want to spend too much time on that. But I want to give you an overview of that because I think it's really important to put it all in context. It's okay? All right, I'll keep going. So now we're going to get to the meat of this, which is the what we're calling the BAREC site, but also you might have heard it referred to as Win6. Over the past 18 months or so, I've been involved with this property for over 12 years. But over the past 18 months or so, I've been working directly with the community, with council members, with staff members, and architects to vision and come up with some ideas on how can we make this property special for our community. What can we do here to create something that's long-term, a longer-term vision than just, let's get this land developed really quick in a way that was dictated 10, 12 years ago. What can we do now, today, that really is going to be impactful to us? And before I go there, I threw in this bullet point here. I don't believe the city of Santa Clara has the energy or the interest in developing it in a creative way on their own, because I think they're a little understaffed right now. They have the stadium on the north side. They're doing a lot of development with the Irvine Company. There's a lot of development happening in the city, and this is just kind of on the edge. We know we're on the edge of Santa Clara. You know, Santa Clara is mostly to the northwest. We're kind of on the southeast, right on the edge of San Jose, and there's not a lot of attention given to this area. And this is a piece of property that, I mean, I'm sure they want to develop well, but they're not putting a lot of staff resources onto it. And I would give you the example of, in the RFP, the request for proposal, meaning the city actually went out to the development community and said, we need this property developed. Here's the guidelines. And they gave us 2 guidelines. One is create something that was a 12-year-old plan, verbatim, or cut the land in half. You can develop, basically buy 3 acres, develop it for some kind of market rate activity, which would be housing. That's what market rate activity means. And then they'll use the money from that sale to build a senior community at some point in the future. No commitments, no real vision on how that would happen. So that's why I say this, I don't think they are willing to invest the time or energy to do it on their own, which has motivated me to get more involved and kind of help the city vision to see what we can do here to really make it special. So I approach this with, I have what I call 3 basic guiding principles when I go out and I look at things like this. And the first is, how can whatever we do here serve the community that lives here? Not just the community that's going to be built, but the community that's already here. That's the first kind of cornerstone of what we're talking about. The second is, how can it relate to our corporate partners and the retailers that are doing business here? Because they're partners in this area too, like at Westfields and Santana Row and the small retail shops that are in the community. And lastly, what about the public that's actually going to consume and use all these services? The people that come here every day, the thousands of people that come here every day. So these are the 3 main things that I look at whenever I suggest an idea or a solution. It addresses those. So we're going to look at the site right now, but we're going to focus on these front 6 acres. So this used to be 17 acres. This is the Summerhill development that went in, and this is the front 6 acres. So The 6 acres right there are in red. There are 6 acres that are available, owned by the city of Santa Clara. But just to the right over here, that's the Veteran Services Administration building. It's the only one in Santa Clara County. It's the main veteran services for all of Santa Clara County. And so we saw this as an opportunity to actually explore as well. And then the other thing that's right down here is the little shopping center that's down here. This is the Steno Shopping Center. This is where Snack Fitness is, where the cobbler's bench, the tailor, and Schwenk Box. Those 4 retail concerns. So in looking at this land and looking kind of visioning forward, we start to look at, well, what happens if we look at this whole piece of property? How can this whole piece of property really contribute to the community long term if there's some kind of connection with the community, with the owners of those properties? How can we make something really special if we look at the overall parcel, not just this one little one, but we add these other ones here? Now we have a veteran component that's in there. Maybe we have some neighborhood retail. Now, when we talk about retail, we're not talking about Valley Fair retail. We're talking about neighborhood retail, like the shoemaker. Maybe it's a butcher store. Maybe it's a farmer's market. Maybe it's a wellness shop or art studios. Small things for the neighborhood to support, not the public to come in. And they're not going to go travel 10 miles to go to a local butcher. They're going to go to Valley Fair and do whatever they do. So these ideas were shared, I don't know, probably for the last 12 months or so, about how can create an urban farm-based housing community which allows for agricultural uses to be on that site, which is historically what it used to do, and still have a housing component which satisfies the city's needs to develop low-income senior housing and maybe even some market-rate housing, and ideally some mixed-income housing. So we looked at different solutions, and this proposal right here, this vision on land use, I didn't create this. I didn't. This is presented to the city of Santa Clara by a company called the Core Companies. It's a local developer in San Jose on Market Street. And they saw some of the ideas that we've been socializing with the community, and they liked it. And they liked it so much that they started working with us to say, okay, well, let's see what we can do, and let's see how we can make this a project that's fundable and viable for us. So they looked at incorporating in this land use plan, they have over 1.5 acres of a working urban farm. This is a community farm that is producing food for the residents here, for the community that surrounds us, and for any public that wants to come in and take a look at it as well. So this is pretty incredible that a developer, today's day and age, doesn't want to just build housing. They're actually building a community that has community assets and community-focused things. So I think this is just, it's an amazing, to me, a leap that the developer was able to take with us as a community. And it's another example of how it might look at the street level in the farm area, kind of looking over at the housing development that surrounds it. But this is, again, something that I don't think you will see a developer in today's economics start to do. But this is what the future of sustainability and land use and how we can have community assets. These are things that will resonate with us as community members. So I wanted to share that these 2 slides here, these 2 images, and I have a bigger picture of some of these images as well. It shows the aerial view of the site. But these are things that will help us set the tone for the future of our neighborhoods. If we say we want community-based agriculture and community-based assets and amenities as part of any development that goes on here, as Valley Fair and Santana Row start to develop their communities, they can take the lead from Santa Clara and say, okay, well, we're going to make pedestrian-friendly things in what we do. And this is, I believe, the first step in getting in that direction. This is not just a typical housing development. This is an urban farm-based housing community that takes care of veterans, it takes care of seniors, it takes care of mixed income, moderate income. It's got a whole variety of things that, and this company wants to work with the community and even expand it and make it better. So I think it's very exciting to be able to share this with you, because I don't think anybody else in the area is doing it. So again, I just mentioned it's touching on senior focused, mixed income, affordability, veteran integration, and in the future there's an opportunity to even take that half-acre parcel of land that the Veteran Services is sitting on right now and integrate those services into a new development. And think of how exciting that can be if we can actually have new veteran services and horticultural and therapeutic programs in the garden for veterans right here on site. Right here in our little neighborhood here, we can do something that's kind of legendary and kind of taking us to the next level and taking care of our veterans. It's really exciting, and I'm just excited that I get to share this with everybody. So the change is happening. Change is happening here is my biggest message, and we can help positively impact that change if we get involved and if we stay engaged in what's happening around us. Now, I'm not saying you're going to be able to stop Valley Fair from doing what they're doing, because you're not. But rather than, and everybody's concerned, I know, about traffic and congestion and all the people that are coming, and how do we deal with that? And those are very valid questions. But we as a community, if we start asking those questions, not in a confrontational way, but in a, we know this is happening, let's figure out how to deal with that way. We can start doing things like this, which helps offset some of the impacts that all this traffic congestion will have if we can start doing pedestrian-friendly amenities, like larger sidewalks, like public open spaces and gathering spaces that the public can use, not just the private gated community can use, but the public can use as a whole, and having places for gardening and planter boxes and things like that. So how can you help? This is the little piece of paper that you have that Marguerite handed out. The biggest thing that you can do is to write the city of Santa Clara and let them know that this is something that you either like or maybe you don't like, but it's important that you share your opinion, because it shows Santa Clara that you as a community member want to stay involved and you want to be engaged in what happens around you. And I think that's really important that the city hear that. And the easiest way to do that is you send an email to the mayor and council email address. It gets distributed to all council members every week. Okay? Secondly, there is on June 23rd, next month, they're going to be announcing, so at least on the agenda, tentatively, who the city has selected for their development, who's going to develop this property. I can't tell you who that is. It hasn't been, unfortunately, a transparent or open process where we even know who the developers are or what their proposals are. But I can share with you this one developer, the core companies, this is what they've proposed. And I would be surprised if other developers propose something as innovative and forward-thinking as this. And these are community-focused, very outreach-oriented developers in this community. And I would encourage you to think hard about supporting what they're trying to do for us in our community and how to develop this land responsibly. Lastly, we have a Facebook page that we started. You'll hear the term Win6 Village. That's the vision that some of us have created about this property and the area. So you could join that. And lastly, I think most of you are on Nextdoor. If you're not, I encourage you to get on Nextdoor. It's a great way to just stay in touch with the community. And that is my last slide. Thank you.
At the previous meeting that we had here, someone came in and talked with another organization, and they said that piece of land there that you're talking about is going to be made into low-income housing for seniors. So do you have different groups all around, and then how is that voted on as to what is done?
So let me get back to this slide right here.
Yeah.
So what they've done, so the city has mandated and has been voted on that 165 units of senior apartments be created for low-income seniors. And that's in part, that was voted on, that was a measure that was voted on, and that has to be incorporated on this property. And what they have done, this building right here is dedicated to affordable senior housing. There's 165 apartments of affordable senior housing on this site, in their plan. They also have market rate and below market rate housing for non-seniors on the site. They also have for sale townhomes on the side to complement what's on the other side of the street. So they have a blend of things. That's how they've made it economically viable for them to create these non-revenue generating elements, which are these open spaces and agricultural components.
So how much of the land then, after the senior places are built, how much of the land is actually left for what you're talking about?
So all this green space on the ground here, if you look at all these corridors and open alleys and things like that, it's about 2.2 acres out of 6. So it's a little over a third. Now the farm component, which is kind of this odd-shaped piece right here, that's about 1.6 acres. So a little over an acre and a half, about 25%, something like that, of the site will be dedicated to urban farm-based activities and community spaces, which is it's pretty incredible to be able to see it develop. And most of the time, I mean, if you look at what happened directly behind at the Summerhill site, they had 10 acres. They developed 0 for open space, other than the streets. There's a 1 acre park in the back, but they didn't even pay for that. The state gave that to the city. So out of 11 acres, they donated 1, or dedicated 1 of those acres. Here we have 6 acres, and they're dedicating over 2 to open space activities and community activities. It's pretty incredible. I mean, I don't know how to express the forward-thinking and kind of progressive and really visionary stuff these guys are putting forward as a developer. I mean, it's really creative. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
What about parking?
Parking, right now it's parked. There's underground parking, 1 level of underground parking under both structures. And right now there's first floor parking as well. I think with community input, we can maybe alter that a little bit and have some of the parking removed from that first level so that we can have neighborhood retail activities, things that are again, not big box activities, not crazy retail stuff, but things that are local to the community, like like I said, a wellness center or the arts and studios, maker spaces, things like that.
Is any area part of it sort of saved for like a park area, just park area to go walk or sit in?
So there are walking spaces all throughout these spaces. These are all kind of interactive spaces. Some of it is dedicated to actual growing food and farming, but it's all, the person that they partnered with is called CNGF. It's a nonprofit called California Native Garden Foundation, and Allie Middlebrook runs that. And her focus with her company is putting gardens into schoolyards. That's really her focus of her nonprofit. And this is kind of an extension of that. This is not necessarily for schools, but it's also about integrating with the public and having public places and education spaces on urban agriculture. Does that answer your question? Yes?
Yes. When is the projected date of completion for the senior project?
Projected date, boy, it's a really good question. Again, I'm not the developer. I can't even, I would hate to project when it would be completed. What usually happens, and I'm just talking typically, is the market rate portion gets built first so they can start generating money to help fund some of these things. That's typically what happens. I think it would probably be 2 or 3 phases. This would probably be built first in conjunction with some of this, and then these get built. And usually it's the subsidized components, which are the senior component here. That's usually what gets built last because it needs funding from the market rate or the for-profit activities.
My other question is in connection with that. And what do you think, when can the senior people can start applying?
So the questions like that, I really can't speak to those things. I would encourage you to ask the City of Santa Clara those questions in your email. When would someone be available?
They first have to get selected by the city.
Oh, good point. So it's really, yeah, so the questions that you're asking are after a developer gets selected and starts building, they'll have a construction schedule. But right now there's more than 5, probably less than 10 developers that have applied to develop this property. They're all probably going to have some component of senior housing, but it's unclear because they haven't shared any of their designs. The core companies in partnership with CGF, if you like what this looks like, or at least in concept what this looks like, I would encourage you to tell that to Santa Clara so that that would encourage them to select them as the developer. Because if they're not the developer, I can't guarantee you're not going to see something like this, but I'm pretty sure it's not going to look much like this. There's probably going to be some open space, but it's not going to be an urban farm-based housing community that's community focused. That I'm pretty sure.
I think we have to wrap it
Okay.
up here. We've got other business that we have to
All right.
take care of, but thank you, Kurt.
Thank you very much. Thank you very, very much. Really appreciate it.